Well, why don't we start there? Because
Yeah.
I was going to go easiest to hardest, but let's start with the hardest. And I see the West is up there. Big guy, good job with the graphic and everybody working behind the scenes. But if you take a look, you just nailed it. First off, KenPom has Kansas as the fourth best team in the region, and he ain't wrong. You can put UConn ahead of them. You could put Gonzaga ahead of them. You can put UCLA ahead of them, and then Kansas. So Kansas is going to open. You take a look at the West right now. Kansas is going to open with Howard. It's not going to be easy in the second round either. Arkansas, Illinois, of course, underneath. 5 seed St. Mary's. That was a that was a big time seeding for a St. Mary's team that obviously lost in the finals and got completely boat raced by Gonzaga. VCU on the line, Connecticut, Iona, and then you continue Gonzaga, Grand Canyon, who had a nice little run, Northwestern, Boise State. As we talk about Boise State, we should discuss what you and I were harping on a lot. You crushed me when I said the Mountain West is going to get teams in here at large. San Diego State was in regardless of what happened in their conference championship over the weekend. We know that. But how about at larges for Utah State, Nevada, and Utah State, Boise State, and Nevada?
Well, look, I thought it was deserved. I just didn't think the league would get it. By the way, though, I don't know why you're flying solo on this mission here. I'm not saying that I wasn't suggesting or implying that the league wouldn't get more teams in. But I thought you were in agreement with me there, buddy.
Oh, was I? You know what? Maybe I was just waving the flag for the Mountain West and the major conference bias that to me is on the decline big time. I think it's good for the sport, wider interest, the data, the net, which we've had now for about 5 years. Well, the committee obviously is paying attention to it. But the teams that, I guess had beef, Rutgers.
Yes.
They lost to Minnesota. Get the hell out of here. Yeah. Vandy lost to Grambling and Southern Miss. North Carolina, we don't even want to talk about.
By the way,
Oak State was your first team out.
The Golden Eagles were not bad this year. I know they didn't play well in the conference tournament, but Southern Miss was a solid team this year.
Yeah, but Vandy, I'm talking about the teams that had beef here. Rutgers, Oak State, Vandy, and North Carolina. Over them, you get Utah State, who lost in their conference final, of course, to San Diego State, Boise State, and Nevada.
I got no problem. Look, Lucas has been tremendous for Nevada this year. This team has been really good. Baker, the Texas transfer, has also been very good for them. Not a big Steve Alford guy, but I'll tell you what, the team has played well. I like this Utah State team. They can really shoot the basketball. They're going to be dangerous. Leon Rice's team, Boise, plays really good defensively. That's going to be a great matchup with Northwestern. Going to give a slight edge to the Wildcats, probably only because I have a Big Ten bias. But other than that, I think you can make an argument either way in that one. But to me, I thought the league was deserving of this, and I'm glad they got 4 teams in there because this is a very, very good league. Maybe because I live here in Las Vegas and I follow a little bit closer than you might in other parts of the country. But I'm telling you, there's a lot of places. If you had teams having to go to Albuquerque, San Diego, Boise, Logan, Reno, they're coming out with losses on the road.
Well, first off, Utah State, 4 guys that can knock down threes. Yeah. Dorius, Funk, they have size. You know that about Utah State. San Diego State literally looks like a football team. That team lives in the gym. Seriously.
Matt Bradley might be the strongest guard pound for pound in college football and basketball.
Well, they go with the 3. Trammell, who transferred, I think, from Seattle. Bradley, and then Butler. They just legitimately look like they live in the gym. Nevada, Lucas, Blackshear, and Baker. That's about as good a top 3. The problem with Nevada, they lost 3 straight coming in, and they don't really have depth. But that top 3 of Lucas, Blackshear, and Baker is about as good as it gets. And Boise State's got 5 players that average at least 10 points. Like, these are good basketball teams.
You're absolutely right. And one other thing to keep in mind when you're betting these games, remember, the tournament has longer timeouts, right? You have a 90-second to 2-minute timeout during the regular season. These are going to be 2.5 to 3-minute timeouts. So it's a little bit more rest. You don't have to worry about as much of depth. Really, you want a team that's at least got a 7-man rotation. You're in good shape there.
Okay, speaking of Boise State, Thomas Gable runs the race and sportsbook at the Borgata. Open Boise State 1. That number has flipped. Northwestern, a 1.5 favorite. We continue. Let's go back to the West because I do have region odds, and then we'll move on to Houston. Houston's in a bit of a pickle, and we'll discuss the Midwest here in a second. But the West, so right now, these are Bet Rivers, one of our sponsors. UCLA is your favorite, Amal Shah. We talked about Kansas, whatever the hell they did to the selection committee to be put in this bracket. UCLA is your favorite at 3-1. Kansas is your second betting favorite at 3.25. Look at these odds. Gonzaga is your third betting favorite at 3.5. And then UConn, a team that you love, is 4.5 to 1. So again, Kansas, your 1 seed, but UCLA is your favorite to get out of that region over at Bet Rivers.
Yeah, a couple things. KU, Kevin McCullough didn't play Saturday against Texas, and I thought that was going to be a key factor. He may not necessarily be a guy that you think of offensively, but we know he could do defensively. That impacted them. I don't think it was the reason why Texas still won by 20, but I thought it had an impact. And when you look back at the 3 games they played this year, Texas was tight in Lawrence, blew them out in Austin, and blew them out in Kansas City. I think KU's a really good team. The difference will be when Bill Self is there. Norm Roberts did a nice job in filling in 3 games to get to the conference tournament final, but come up short. UCLA, again, I talked about it at the top of the show. Jalen Clark out. Best on-ball defender guarding 1, 2, and 3. And then you have a Dembona inside. When you look at some of the bigs in the Pac-12, maybe people don't pay attention, but and Folly Dante at Oregon, we mentioned Bona. You look at Gay up at Washington State. There are some dudes that are not only good, athletic, 6'10" or bigger, can run rim to rim, and that's why they need Bona in the middle. If they got Bona in there, I don't know if there's a point guard in college basketball that controls the game better than Tiger Campbell. 85, 86% at the free throw line. I know he missed that one at the end of the game against Arizona, but I look at it just as a miss. It wasn't a choke. If you watch Mahoney for Yale yesterday, down 3 on a 1-on-1, you could see his left hand shaking, Patrick, as he's getting ready to take the free throws, and he clangs the front end of the 1-on-1, and then Yale gets blown out by Princeton. But for me, when I look at Jaquez, how under control he is, the young guys for UCLA, I'm telling you, I watched that game very closely Saturday night. UCLA is a really good team. And, of course, with Mick going postal on every player, I think they should be focused.
And if Kansas does get to the Sweet 16, I know Amal Shah will be betting on a UConn team to beat them.
No, not necessarily. Look, the best player in this entire region is Jalen Wilson of Kansas. He's the best player offensively, defensively, overall. To me, it's not even close, really. But I think the thing with Kansas is they lack that size. It's going to be a challenge when you look at Klingon and Sonogo inside. Jackson's a great athlete for UConn. He can cover Grady Dick. That would be, I'll tell you what, that's worth the price of admission alone, to see Grady Dick and Jackson going at it one-on-one from both sides of the floor there.
Okay, if you're looking at your bracket here on Sharp Money, we're just going to move up. We're going to move up to the West because you had mentioned injuries, and Houston's in a bit of a situation here. You take a look at Bet Rivers, they're your shortest to get out of their region, that being the Midwest. They're plus 140. Texas, who's peaking at the right time. Amal, you love this Texas team. They're 3-1 to get out of that region. A couple of things about Houston. One, obviously lost to Memphis. No Marcus Sasser. Sasser slipped, and he's their leader. He slipped on Saturday night and pulled his groin. Nobody knows what his status is. Of course, he didn't play against Memphis yesterday. Just to add something to it, what Calvin Sampson's going through, where his twin sister died on Friday. I mean, there's a lot of emotion surrounding this program right now. I'm not saying that obviously it's going to impede them, but there's just, he is a human being. And then you take a look at Houston and take a look at the bracket. If they do get past Northern Kentucky, which they will, Iowa, Auburn, they could be playing an Auburn team in Birmingham.
Yeah, it's going to be a real challenge there. I'll tell you what, that Iowa-Auburn game, the 8-9 matchup in the Midwest region, is going to be one of the best on Thursday. But to me, the big thing is, Patrick, you mentioned it, the Sasser injury is crucial. How long and how severe is it remains to be seen. I didn't expect it, which he didn't play on Sunday. We saw that. That was not really that much of a shocker because Houston's got big picture in mind. But to me, when you look at this region, you mentioned Texas. I took Texas Saturday night after the Kansas game. It was 20-1. I said to a friend of mine, I said, you better bet it now. I said, this thing's going to be down to 12-1. And this morning, boom, it's at 12-1. I think the way Carr has led this team, Rodney Terry's done a great job filling in, I think, since December 12th, taking over for Chris Beard. Texas is a really dangerous team. Dessou inside, they've got some size. Mitchell, this is a team that you got to really be careful of. Now, Timmy Allen's health is a bit of a concern for me. But other than that, I think the Horns are right there.
Okay, we move down the bracket again. Houston and Marcus Sasser, that is going to be huge to monitor his health. Let's talk quickly Indiana and Kent State. That's the 4-13 matchup because Thomas Gable, Borgata checking in. They opened Indiana 5.5. If you watched Kent State beat up on Toledo, we talked about Toledo. They're a legit team. Kent State is a very good basketball team. This number opened Indiana 5.5. The Sharps are taking Kent State. It's been bet down to 4.
Yeah, I think it's the right move, and I think 3.5 or 4 is probably the right number. Give a slight edge to Indiana because, again, you got to be able to slow down TJD and Race Thompson on the interior. And then you're going to need Galloway to shoot the ball well, and Gates has to shoot the ball well. If they can get those two guys going from the perimeter, I think this team can be really dangerous. But you're absolutely right. And then, of course, Hood Schifino. I think he'll probably be the second best player on the floor in that matchup. But give Kent credit. You were right on Saturday against Toledo. They couldn't miss. That was a great matchup. Kent, though, remember, they played near their home. That one is played at Quicken Loans Arena in downtown Cleveland. Only about a 30 to 40-minute drive from the Kent campus. They win that one in dominant fashion. Patrick, I want to quickly go back to this region and the 10-7 matchup between Texas A&M and Penn State. I'm glad everyone's going to be able to see my guy Jalen Pickett play. This guy's an absolute dude. But if A&M wins this game, you talk about a bad matchup for Texas in the second round. Texas taking on Texas A&M. I don't care if they're you, Dustin, myself, and Kevin on that A&M team. Just because of the rivalry, this will be one hell of a war.
And Penn State, Texas A&M right now, I don't know where your true number is. A&M's about a 3.5 point favorite. If you watch them against Bama, there's a reason Bama's the number 1 overall seed. They couldn't get anything done against potentially the deepest and the most talented team in the country in Alabama. A&M couldn't get anything off.
I think the one thing that's underrated from Alabama, we talk about Brandon Miller and how good he is, but you look at the length, Clowney, all of these guys, and I thought with depth, absolutely. But to me, the where the length comes into play is when you're trying to get shots up. Like if you watch the Arizona-UCLA game, you saw Tabellis and Ballo. They were able to control the defensive glass without Bona in there, and then ETN fouling out as well. So for me, if you're an A&M team and, you've got a guy like Seth Lundy, he's pretty long on the perimeter. This team should have an advantage, though, on the interior here. I'm going to stay away from this game. And by the way, nobody plays better backyard basketball than Penn State's Jalen Pickett. He just takes the ball, he takes your point guard, and he's like, unless it's Matt Bradley, he's like, I'm going to out-physical everybody. I'm just going to back him down, and I'm going to go with a 6-foot jump hook, and I'm going to make 8 out of 10 of those.
Well, it's just fun to watch Pickett because he's that anchor with a bunch of outside shooters, but everything still runs through him. It's a fun team to watch. Penn State, don't be surprised if they beat A&M. Now, just one last note. So, again, they're in the Midwest. I'm taking a look right now. The one that's getting hit the hardest, Kent State. So, no surprise. Kent State's a good basketball team, and most are talking about a 5-12 upset potentially. We hear it every single year. Yes, I get it, but Miami and Drake, it's a Miami team that you do like.
I love this Miami team. I like them a lot. Real quick, just go back to the Kent State team real quick. Sincere Carey has been outstanding. Averages 17 points a game. Can shoot the ball from all 3 levels, inside the arc, free throw line, and then, of course, the 3-point line. This is a dangerous team. But getting to Miami, I love this Hurricanes team. I thought they were a little bit underseeded. If they had a deeper run in the ACC, they would have been a 4 seed, but 5, not bad. I think the Drake matchup is an ideal matchup for them. When you look at the Bulldogs, this team is not quite as good on the interior where it's going to be a real challenge for the Hurricanes. I think their guard play should be able to dominate in this one. Look, kudos to I'm drawing a blank on the Drake head coach's name right now, but to me, when DeVries, DeVries has done a nice job so far with this team, but I think Miami, boy, Patrick, I didn't know this number was 2.5. This is this might be our all-in moment here. Yeah, I'll take my chances. Look, DeVries is a terrific coach. Great story with his son playing for the team, their leading scorer. But I'm going to tell you right now, give me Miami here in this spot. Love the 2.5, and I have a feeling by tip-off we're going to be at 4. I just don't think.
By the way, and pardon me, but it did open 3, so Drake got bet down to 2.5.
That's fine. I'm going to take my shot here with Miami. I thought this line should have been 4, 4.5. I love the Hurricanes in this spot.
Well, you are a host and producers, all hosts and producers here at VSiN. We're giving all our plays. Yeah. You have to give your plays after the show. You're officially going to give Miami laying 2.5.
Well, I don't want to yet because I want to bet it first before I give it out.
Look at you, market mover.
No, it's not about that. Listen, I don't want to get ripped off on a number when I can get a 2.5 out here.
You talked about Miami being underseeded at 5. Not as underseeded as another 5 seed, and that's Duke.
Duke, I agree with you.
So we have to discuss Duke because Purdue, that is a matchup nightmare for Purdue. And when we come back, let's discuss that. Purdue's not getting past Duke in the Sweet 16. Duke's about as hot as anybody right now, and they can do a lot against, again, an underwhelming backcourt in Purdue. So that's what we'll do when we come back. You heard it. He's got to bet it first. Miami 2.5 off the 3 opener.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.